hear us?
If you ask me that question, I can hear you now.
Okay, so we can't hear you yet, but hold on. He can
I'm not-
hear us because he said something. So yes, he can hear us. Mhm.
But-
I thought there was a button. Depends on what that's in here. You can go ahead and start it.
And when you say it, so you see the microphone.
I know we've got people that have to leave.
Is there a speaker?
Mhm. Not really, because, yeah, I think we should stay on
All
schedule.
right, well, it is 7:34. I will call the meeting to order and ask for the roll call.
Snyder? Here. Sorry, I'm looking at the name tag and I got stuck. Nelson.
Here.
Barbour,
Here.
Wallace. Harvey,
Here.
White. Clark. Seller.
Here. Roll call, we're gonna let it know you're gonna say it. I'll ask for our invitation.
Good morning. My name is Pastor Joel Fitzgerald. I'm the pastor of Albion First United Methodist Church. I invite us into a time of silence or prayer. Let us pray. Gracious God, I give you thanks for this morning, for the day that you have given us. I give you thanks for servant leaders willing to serve. And now I ask your blessing upon them and the work that they have to do, and for our city here of Albion. I pray that your blessings would be upon us in all that we do. Pray all this in your Son, Jesus Christ's name. Amen.
Thank you very much. Our pledge of allegiance, I ask you to stand. And then Ms. Snyder asks you to lead us in the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This agenda call for the approval of the agenda. May I have a motion? Second. Motion and a second. All those in favor? Signify by saying aye. Our agenda has been approved. We now move to public comment. We would invite anyone in our Zoom audience to have a comment, as we have very few people in the gallery today. So I do see Mr. Porter, and Mr. Porter certainly part of this entity as well. reporter are welcome to any comments that you may have here now.
A number bit of time, I've been going through health issues, and that's why I haven't been here. Hopefully, going forward, there's a lot changed in the township. We actually finished yesterday the addition parking lots and everything. That's a 2,000 foot addition. Fire station, a training room, and exercise room for fire. New sign up front and then the LED sign. So we can put our public nuisance and stuff out, so we're real busy there, we got. One more solar company coming in for sure, possibly two more. And we're still working on hydrogen. And we have a data center that's interested. We've got a lot going on there. Keep busy for a while.
Great, thank you. Do we have anyone with their hand raised in the Zoom? All right, moving on to item 6, the CEO has requested a closed session pursuant to the rule that you see on your agenda to consider the purchase or lease of real property, along with options to purchase that property. And with that, we will ask to go into closed session unless I hear any objections. And hearing no objections.
Just need a motion. Motion to go.
It is 7:39. Can I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Do I have a second? Before. We have a motion and a second. I can move into closed session. And my calendar or my clock shows 7:39. With that, we will go into closed session.
Need a roll call vote. Snyder,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Barbour,
Yeah.
Harvey,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Zeller.
Yes.
Sounds good. Thank
So just a reminder, Stephen, a little bit early, we're running at 9:30.
you. I think we should be good.
Yeah, okay. Just want you to know, report something, please.
Good take it personally.
And Joel and Jillian, I'm trying to multitask this morning by also attending a Zoom meeting for a client in Albion. So I may occasionally have to mute, and which will be to your relief that I can't be talking to you, but I may still be watching.
I have a 9:30 right after this, but I can make time for you.
Shoot me a text. You're not heard. That's 5 minutes to prep for tomorrow. I just want to have because the first couple of meetings, I don't know if you have any questions or meetings, because they fly right into the discussion. So you come in there fully prepared. I've been assigned. I'll put it.
Oh, no. I can't go here. I'm sorry. It's real fault, so let's just say that. I'm gonna wait on my boss.
I'll let Dr. White.
I told him yesterday.
Okay. It had filtered down. Yeah. So,
Oh, sorry.
no, that's good. You have released me from my smile on my face.
So this is you.
You and I talk. You do the same thing. So you jump in later.
Great about that, but I know 3 times the sport tour is like the worst minute that you've had. So you don't turn your knees. Danielle and Katie both get in conflict, but this is the only thing I'm aware of for now. We're currently at 5 numbers, we need 2 more to talk.
Randy mentioned to me, last week, I believe it was, that he would be unable to attend today. With that, do you think we have a couple more that might come?
Yeah, it looks like the garden has received 2 more people for our quorum. So we have a handful of people that can help us achieve that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Hey, James Logan.
a question while we're waiting. I don't have enough fashion statement t-shirts, and I'm wondering if I can arrange to buy one of the orange gun controls t-shirts that are shown in the packet. Do you have to be special to get one?
I think that was the crowd stopper there, Nelson. I can look into it for you. How's that?
Nelson, I would say you are definitely special. One of the ones available,
Yes, it may.
both for the special.
Jillian, how are we doing?
It looks like we're still waiting for more, basically. Yeah, as far as I can see, we're not quite at 7, but we could always come back to those minutes, which is always.
Well, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. It's 8 a.m. and I know we have a panel this morning that's going to be very helpful to us in discussions of community violence, and want to be mindful of everyone's time. We've moved the agenda around just a little bit, so we'll come back to the minutes. Jillian, you can signal me after the panel presentation if we have the full quorum for those, if that would be acceptable to everyone. All right, so let's move. Thank you. So let's move right into our community health spotlight. And this is a presentation from Bronson and some of our other local community leaders. And what we really identified as an emerging need in our community and everywhere in this country is community violence. So the goal today, it's on our agenda, is to educate members, influence their input, feedback. So we're going to start out with
And if you're in the high side, you can now, reopen the, my clock says that it is 8. I haven't built with the session. Second. And I moved and I second. All those in favor, please signify.
Roll call. Zeller,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Barbour,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you. Oh, Snyder, sorry. I'm sorry. I was reading up.
Okay. Now that we are back in session, item 7 to approve the recommended action from our closed session. I move to approve. Second. We have a motion and a second. It's required a roll call vote. Ms. Ammerman, I ask that you take a roll call vote.
Zeller,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Barbour,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
and Snyder. Yes.
On item 7, we'll move on to honoring Tracy Albert.
I just wanted to say a quick couple of, just take note of the passing of Tracy Talbert. I probably should have called this in memory of, and I guess I just didn't do that correctly, but I did mention this at city council a week or 2 ago, but we do miss Tracy. Some of you may have not known Tracy was a huge advocate of the EDC, as she was a huge advocate of the city. And quite frankly, she's a huge advocate of everything she did. So as some of you may know, we were in the middle of a project, and I personally miss getting my Friday or Monday or both calls asking for an update. So it's been tough. We spent a lot of time together, and I will just share personally that she left me a voicemail the day before she died, asking to make sure that these projects move forward. So I guess, if you weren't already in it, you're in it. If Tracy Talbert said, don't stop. So, I don't think Tracy's gonna let us stop. So, we did attend her service, which was very well done, true Tracy style. She had the whole thing mapped out. So, she had about 6 different women that she had appointed to talk about certain segments of her life. It was just so interesting. And it was very clear that the Tracy of 18 was the Tracy of 25 and was the Tracy of 50 and was the Tracy of the day she died. So, I guess I just want to memorialize her instincts and her intuition and her commitment to what we all are doing here. And she was a mentor for me to be the same person when I get out of bed in the morning and the same person at lunchtime and the same person at dinner time and the same person when I go to bed. So, thank you, Tracy, for inspiring all of us, and we will miss you. That is it. Unless you want to say anything.
Thank you for the kind words. You know, Tracy and I, we are family. Very much. I wonder if there's family session. But after restaurant there.
There is, but it's probably too early to talk about it publicly, but, I believe there is. Mhm. Mhm.
Item number 9, the CEO's report. Realize we need a minute.
No, I'm fine. Thank you, though. I've needed a minute since the Sunday morning I got the call, so you gotta keep going. So I tried to condense this again, trying to be as concise as possible and still be somewhat informative. So on page 3 is the CEO report. Covering the areas that the board has asked me to focus on of competencies. So we have the governance and the leadership and the community relations competencies and the fiscal management competencies. So, the community relations competencies I would address because we've had some complaints about the My Hope grant execution. And so that is the focus this month of community relation competency area. Trying to get out in front of some of the discouragement. We all, from a leadership perspective, I attended several conferences during May. You know, May is always conference month, so you're always traveling, but felt really good about being able to represent Albion at those events. And then governance competencies, I've had several board members with some requests. I'm trying to make sure I'm getting the information out as best I can. And then we did hold that brownfield and brownfield housing TIF funding event the other night that hopefully opens up some doors for some investors and developers to understand those tools a little better. So we're going to try to keep bringing those educational opportunities to the city. From the 10-point plan, I will tell you that we are gaining traction in the region as far as the people with the 10-point plan. So you're getting some real traction and momentum out of knowing that this board has a 10-point plan to address multiculturalism as it relates to growing the workforce for big industry. So I just want to congratulate you that that's really coming together. We received an invitation to attend the Urban Land Institute event, and we were happy to participate in that. And there is a report available if you'd like to see it. I can send it to you. It was very interesting feedback, and I think we can translate that easily into Albion. So I think was very helpful. That was a Marshall, Meta and Ford initiative, but we were invited to participate. The 5-year goals, again, I had mentioned before that since these are part of a 5-year goal plan, it may seem like it's rinse and repeat during each month as we report out, but as you can see on this area, we're working on site readiness, for a new park and then expanding the existing park. And then the corridor improvement authorities, we have made some changes on that item, so we're making some progress. And then in the housing champion areas, we are really gaining some momentum on the various housing projects in town. Maple Grove, we've been able to plug in with the developer on how they're going to redevelop that piece of property. Kennedy Green continues to be on the horizon. Washington Gardner project. We were successful a month or so ago. You gave permission to apply for a My Neighborhood grant of 400,000, and we did receive 472,000 on the My Neighborhood money, which will be spent in a similar way to the My Hope money. So again, trying to help people remain in their homes. These would be low income targeted individuals.
So do we have an update on the Washington Gardner?
The only update that I can really share is that it's not changed. There was an article in the Battle Creek paper, which Tim usually shares when someone says, do you have an update? And I think one of the things that we're learning as we go is none of these projects really flip overnight. So the project is still full speed ahead, but it needs funding. And so the developer, Tim from 0 Day, is working on the financing package. So back in my world, like it takes a year to vision a project. It takes a year to apply for and receive the funding. And then it takes a year after you know how you're going to fund it to really lay out the plan and then get construction underway. So in a lot of ways, to me, it feels like it's right on target, but for people that were hoping, gee, that we're gonna have an 72 units, in a year, that expectation is probably not quite on target. And so then it feels like it's not on target, but from a developer's perspective, it's right on target. So, I think it's just going to take a long time to see anything come of that. So a lot of, as they say, things in the background working out.
I do know in December, this year, the college will be told. And, as far as.
Mhm.
That's right.
So this coming December, it's gonna be,
The next couple of pages are report out on the My Hope grant, and the work that we're doing there. We consistently continue to work on the Watson Street housing project and the Pine Street housing projects. So that's kind of the report on the housing area. On the next couple of pages, I am sending these out weekly so that you all can see the progress on allocating and utilizing the My Hope dollars. This is nearly $1 million of funding. And page 4 is a representation of the fact that there are 3 incremental goals for allocation of funds. The first is on June 30th, the second is on July 31st, and the third is on September 30th. So at the end of June, we have to have allocated at least 25% of the program costs, and 25% of the program costs equals $223,000. We have allocated 277, so we're ahead on the allocation target for the June 30th target. For the July 31st target, we need to double that allocation to 447. So the goal we're working on now is working toward the July 31st goal. And
So
then
I'm sorry, go ahead.
by the end of September, the 895,500 is the program spend for that particular grant. And that's what has the incremental allocation requirements tied to it. So by the time we get to September 30th of this year, we have to have allocated all the dollars. So it doesn't mean we've had to spend them, but we have to know where we're going to spend them. So we have currently 54 applications. If you look at 2 pages out, there's a pie chart. I still need to do a better job of getting this print bigger, but there have been 11 applications denied for various reasons, but that leaves less applications to be able to spend on. We have 19 applications that are still in progress. We have 12 applications that are just pending an energy audit, which means they're ready to go into the allocation bucket as soon as the auditor tells us what we can do. We don't choose what we're allowed to do. And then we have 12 that are past the energy audit and we're awaiting bids. We are not focusing on getting bids right now because we're focusing on those allocation targets. So as soon as we are closer to hitting the July allocation target, we will begin getting bids for work to be done. So we're trying to stay within the framework of the MISTA guidelines so we can stay in compliance for future funding. So because of the 11 that we had to deny, and if you roll that out to what might happen to those 19, we have asked MISTA for more applications because we might not have enough applications to fully spend, which is good news. We can get more people some assistance. So they will send us the 49224 zip code applications until we say we have enough applications to spend our money. So we did put in the request yesterday for some more applications. And then the chart in the middle demonstrates the actual spending. So again, we're not really trying to spend right now because we're trying to hit those allocation targets. But as time goes on, you'll see that the purple line, which is what we are spending, should begin to ramp up close to the goal of the blue line. And then that extends out until the due date of April of 2026, when we really are needing to have all the dollars spent. So that's an update on the My Hope grant.
What I was gonna say, we weren't, and I guess for a lack of a better word, punished for the mishandling initially of the applications in the process.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
I think if we had gone ahead and tried to spend a lot of money and move into the construction phase, that would be an issue. But because we stopped and regrouped, I think that's probably what saved us. The only other thing I would say is there was our article in the paper, op-ed, if you have a chance to read that. It was a couple of weeks ago, and it was an item where we're trying to make sure that the banks don't tighten down on some of their requirements, and that would likely change the equitable allocation of dollars in the market. So there was an op-ed, and it's meant to inspire some conversation. And so if you get a chance to see that, if anybody wants it, I could probably dig up the paper and copy and send it to you too. So just a good conversation piece and trying to, stay with our focus of equitable allocation of dollars and not have the markets get so tight that we aren't able to get funding out to folks.
Any other questions? President's report. Item 10, update on the new board members for the EDC. Still have some older board seats. Mayor, perhaps you can, that's that, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't received any new applications, at least that haven't been fully vetted. I don't know if people applied. Because that there's a vetting process, so I haven't seen anything complete. Individuals have made outreach to me asking questions, so I think there's interest, but just haven't fully pulled the trigger yet.
Is there anything this board can do to assist?
I don't think so. I just think people are just trying to figure out if it's a good fit for them.
Well, we've got open seats, and of course, we want to. robust board means that not only do we get more community input, right? It means that we have more thinking heads in terms of direction. What we should focus on. That's all. Item number 11, tech presentation by Trevor. I know he's not here. Virginia, I don't know if you have a brief report or shared any information.
You know, he and I continue to discuss this, and Mark Gettle was in my office yesterday from MMTC, and we discussed it again. There was a really interesting article that came out last night about, and I only knew this because I was in the Detroit market for a while, that there was it's a cultural and tech hub that Ford actually was, and it was an old train depot. So interesting, long, interesting story. It took 6 years to do. So not, again, not an overnight thing, but you know, that was a really interesting article too, about just recognizing the need to have our workforce have a place to become more culturally aware and more strategically able to take on some of these positions that we know that the market is moving into. So I could share that article with you. I shared it with Trevor this morning too. Trevor just has a particularly high passion for this. And so it's, you know, I really like for him to be able to speak to it. But the essence, I believe, is that we would like to be out in front of drawing in technical expertise to this region so that the folks here in Albion can take advantage of a lot of the growth. So with that in mind, we are planning some outreach opportunities to just literally try to talk to what I believe we have 700 people in the city that are employable at a higher level than they currently are, or unemployed. And so the under and unemployed, we're trying to reach them specifically and find out what the barriers are for them. And if technical expertise is one of them, then this would, you know, kind of be one of the solutions. And so so those are the outreach opportunities. It's part of the goals that the board set in the beginning of the year, was to try to reach 20% of that 700 number. So we're beginning outreach opportunities. And again, once we have met some of those individuals and can create a plan, then it would either be MMTC that we could partner with, or KCC, or other institutions. We had a meeting with AC3 in the college the other day, so here at the Albion College. So there's ample opportunities to create, you know, some technical assistance and take advantage of being able to train folks. So I think that's essentially it.
All right, any questions? Let's move on to the item number 12. I know parts of this is covered in the report, your president's report. Any highlights you wanted to do in the task force area?
I would say the executive board met and did receive some feedback from Nelson that we can have a social event. There's an item allowed in the Open Meetings Act that says you can have a social event as long as it stays social. So that's a thumbs up. We can do something if you'd like. So we got the approval, so we can do that. The rest of the items we probably have already covered sufficiently, and the other reports.
I have any questions around any other stuff in that area? If not, we'll move on to the center agenda. I remember we take us through these one work group, or how do you?
I think we just need a motion to approve the items in the consent agenda.
Any questions around this area?
You have to have the motion first. It's not appropriate.
What do you got? Do I hear a motion?
Right.
Then move to the second.
Oh, I can't motion, sorry.
All right. Vicky, did you make a motion? Yes. Yeah, all right, so we have a motion and a second. Does this require a roll call vote?
So is it just the minutes we're approving?
Just.
Yeah.
So now you can have discussion and questions.
Do we have any questions from anyone in the board of comments section? Not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against, say nay. It appears to be ayes have it. Forward. I don't really want to make a comment back.
So now we need an emotion to approve the treasurer's report.
And we approve. Second. We'll move to second, any questions?
I think Nelson's gonna give the report.
I went through it, I looked at, work 3 months ago, which is my method to see if anything changed. Excuse me. What has changed is that now that, Murphy has had more staff, then there's staff expense. On budget or actually had a budget. It takes a while to get the staff in place. Now the staff's in place, they're incurring some expense for that. Otherwise, on most of these, big funds and investments and so forth, it's all pretty much the same. As was, last month and last 3 months. That looks good. Any questions?
Any questions? Thank you for the report. Do I hear a motion?
You have that, you just have to take a vote now. You already have a motion to approve, you just have to take the vote. It's just all those in favor.
I hear those in favor, signify by saying
Aye.
You're any nays when you're any no nays, you consider it approved. To review and approve the Albion housing study.
So you need a motion to approve the study, the cost of the study. So it's really appropriate to get the motion to approve and then have the discussion. Yeah,
All right, right here, second. Move it second.
so now I can present the topic.
Please go.
Okay. So this is on page,
18.
thank you. So by way of background, I would say that this concept has been around for many, not many, several years. It started before the pandemic, so it was before I arrived. And probably the only reason that the EDC has become involved is because of our role with housing and the interest in how the development of housing helps to attract jobs and create, opportunities. So because the EDC is now in a housing champion role, we've partnered with the city to understand our housing needs. In years back, Battle Creek City did a housing study, and now Albion and Marshall and Springfield were partnering on a housing study. And Springfield has recently pulled out of that process. So at this point, it appears that it would be more of an Albion Marshall housing study. And Plant Moran, I believe it's Plant Moran. I don't think it's PWC. I think it's Plant Moran. Has given us this outline that you see on page 18 and 19. And that is it. And that would be the scope of the study. So the price has moved around a couple times. It was 150 if Springfield was involved. Springfield said, well, we're gonna pass. So now it's 100 and MEDC has said they would fund 75,000 of that. So Marshall and Albion are being asked to split the remaining 25, and city manager and I have been talking about this topic and wondering if the city can split with the EDC, the 12.5 that we would need to come up with as a unified city. So does the EDC board, would the EDC board like to contribute half of the 12.5? And then the city council would be asked for the other half of the 12.5. I think city manager's waiting to go to city council until she knows whether the EDC would support this topic and whether there would be any funding. If she doesn't get funding here, then I'm sure she would ask council for the whole 12.5. So the question is whether the EDC wants to take any economic development dollars and put toward a housing study. We did discuss this in our housing committee and the task force, and the housing task force did seem to think that there was interest in the data that was coming forward from this potential study. Bruce is on that task force, and Bruce specifically asked if we could augment the study by having a better understanding of how to incorporate the utilization of land bank properties in the housing world. So we did kind of go back and asked a little bit about that, and now that it's only 2 entities, I think we have a little more leeway on what we can ask for in the structure of the project. So the question is, the housing task force has given their recommendation. Yes, we'd like to see this data. And the question really is whether the EDC board would like to sort of officially endorse this project, and would you like to, engage in sharing the 12.5 cost? 12,500, and then Marshall would come forward with 12,500 to make 25, and then we'd be off to the races. So,
Do we know where we are with Marshall approving this? Has that,
I would be shocked if Marshall doesn't approve it, because Eric, the city manager there, I think he's the planner. He's been spearheading this for years, and so I would imagine if he's spearheading it, he has support. That would be my guess.
so I guess can we approve contingent that Marshall also approves?
I would think so.
Because if Marshall doesn't approve, then it's all on us.
Right.
Correct,
We would be in for the 25
Yeah.
instead of the 12.5.
exactly, so,
And I did say, I will say this, I did reach out to Jim Durian from Maida's perspective. And I asked if they would be able to help fund some of this cost. And I did that because of the outcomes of the ULI study. And what I heard, and I'm going to be fairly in a friendly way, remind people of this, that the Marshall Maida group has received a significant amount of funds from the state to improve the entire Marshall region. And during the ULI outcome, and I will share that with you, but it was very clear that there's a need for Marshall Maida, the entity, to reach out to EDO partners around the region and help us build capacity. So it's very clear that we need some assistance to build capacity to assist Maida and to assist Ford. So without some of that capacity building, we will not be able to participate at the same level as some other regions, which will not service Albion. So that's why I asked Jim, hey, what do you know about this? And are you thinking of taking this to your board? So I'm curious to find out if the Maida board is interested in supporting a housing study. We kind of know what our housing needs are, plus or minus a big industry. And so I think the goal of this is to really delineate the delta or the difference in the housing needs based on something like a Ford happening within, 12 minutes of us.
So we did wasn't there a housing study we looked at a year ago, 18 months ago? And then
So we have one from 2017 15. And I've marched that forward on a spreadsheet and that's what I'm working on with my projections. If I laid it out right now, I would say the same thing I've been saying. We need about 350 units of affordable housing, and that matches the folks that we have here that already need housing. We need 150 units of kind of missing middle type, and then we're going to need about 1,000 units of market rate if we want to be able to approach our goals of increasing the population in Albion from 7,500 up to a number closer to 12,500. And that matches the state's goals of moving the needle 75,000 people in total, of which 30,000 would be Black families. So the state has a very specific target, and that is from the growth specialist area saying we need A, 75,000 families, B, significant diversity. So we are modeling our, anticipated growth pattern after that. To do that, we need a certain amount of housing. And this, I think, services Marshall's needs very intently, because they appear to be trying to apply for some grants and apply for some funding that they believe they need these data points to be able to accomplish that. So that's where the specific data points came from, was their recommendations because of some funding that they are seeking, and I don't know the nature of that funding.
So if that's the case, there's some data points that we need that we don't already have, or is our material outdated? I guess funding it is one thing, or assisting to fund it, but how does it do us good? The yield of the information seems to appear to be something this group looked at some time ago, and I think you just supported that and saying it's information that we've already got. So I'm wondering.
So there's data on so to your point, within the last 6 months, I pulled down a new study from new data that would have never been available when this whole process started years ago. Because Mishta has built a whole new data set that you can draw from, and you can slice and dice and do a lot of things. And I think I sent it all out to you, and it was so much paper that if you did anything with it, you probably just started a fire, so that you could, warm yourself if it was cold. But then I tried to summarize it a little bit, but I will tell you, it's chock full of data, depending on how you slice and dice the data that Mishta has on their website now. My opinion, and it's hard for me sometimes not to have my developer hat on, is most of my developers do their own market study in the area that they want to develop in, and that's how they come up with the data that tells them whether they can develop. The other data point is, if we could just sell one house, then I would know what the price point is here for a market rate house. And I don't think this is gonna help me with that problem, but I'm happy to be a team player. I'm just stuck, so.
Yeah, I looked at the proposal, and I've also looked at a lot of the other housing data as I'm trying to inform myself. And I do think that this particular study will provide us additional information that we don't have now that would be helpful. It's very targeted to our particular needs at the time. A lot of the stuff that we already have, we'd have to kind of gather it all together and do a lot of the analysis that they're going to do. And I think for the fact that it's being picked, 3/4 of it's being picked up by MEDC, makes it and Marshall's going to split it with us. If Marshall were to pull out, then obviously the price would be different, because then it'd be a whole nother renegotiation. But I think for the amount of money involved here and splitting it if we can split it with the city, it's definitely worth the information we'd be getting.
So I'd like to make,
Yeah, I was waiting for you.
I was gonna make a motion to approve funding contingent on, well, I would say approve our portion of funding along as the city is also in agreement we're splitting half of the cost contingent upon Marshall also approving.
City of Albion.
Yeah, so like Reggie said, it would be split between EDC and the city of Albion if we approve. But I also want to make sure that Marshall's on board. So contingent upon Marshall approving.
Motion to amend the motion that's already been made to approve.
Yes.
Right.
And it seems like it just needs to be, because there's, in the proposal that's in here, there's no money.
Yeah,
There's no
so that's-
discussion. So we have to, I think, clarify what the money amount is that was in that amendment motion too. And we could just make it contingent on the other parties all, that, too.
Mhm.
Then start them all out, that we've got, you can see Marshall, the city. And then. So.
So you could,
Visually, in my mind, I didn't think that it's contingent on all other departments participating.
Yes.
so you could identify the exact dollar amount, which is $6,250. So that would probably clarify.
Yeah, that's.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So then procedurally, we wanna amend.
Amend the initial motion.
that you're making.
No, so,
No, it's the same motion.
yeah,
He was just adding the dollar figure to it.
yes. So I'm amending the initial motion to support because there was no,
Well, restated, so.
so what was our part of the 12.5? It's
6,250.
Yep.
So I think the motion that Mayor is making is to amend the original motion to include the dollar amount of 6,250 and to require participation by related parties.
Yep. So that needs a vote first.
Right.
Second.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Yes.
I have a motion, I have a second.
Now we got
No further discussion on it. Make a move to the vote. All
It'll be a
those-
roll call because there's a dollar amount involved.
Yeah, there's a dollar, so we'll have a roll call vote. Barbara?
Snyder,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Barbour,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Zeller,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Now we need a vote on,
The original motion.
yes,
All right, so I have a motion.
that's already been on the floor.
You just need to have further discussion.
Is there further discussion around it?
Right.
So may we have a vote? And again, I think it's a roll call vote.
Zeller,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes,
Barbour,
Yes.
Nelson.
Yes.
Thank you.
Move on, item number 16. Mr. Emery, you want to take us through that?
Sure. We need a motion made to review and approve the resolution to approve myself to execute and deliver application to City of Albion regarding their chill grant with the associated assurances.
I have a motion, I have a second. Discussion?
So in your packet on page 20 is a resolution that would allow for for me on behalf of the EDC to propose to the City of Albion that we be the grant administrator for their chill grant. They had advertised for this position, and so we have put together a package. We actually have already delivered this package because it was due prior to this date, so this is just reconciling and making sure this resolution is part of the official records. So this would be an opportunity for us to administer the $500,000 chill grant. And I don't have any way of knowing how likely we would be awarded, but we did apply. And then we had asked for 10% as an admin fee, which is usually the appropriate amount. So then we would execute the grant, and we would then be able to have that administrative component come into our budget. So this would be just another revenue stream from the administrative perspective, and we would use the same tools and, capacity that we have built up, with the My Hope and the My Neighborhood grant, execution.
And what's that administrative stream that you gain?
10% of the 500,000 would be 50,000.
And what is the chill grant for?
I have no idea what CHILL stands for. Wish I could tell you that, but it's money that the city has been awarded from MISTA. And it's up to a certain amount of money per household. And they may have set the guidelines on like the income level that they would be supporting. But again, it's home repairs. So very similar. What MISTA is doing is breaking down into various categories all the same money, right? So this is either ARPA money or IRA meaning infrastructure money or justice money. And so they just are coming out with it in different buckets. Sometimes the city applies, sometimes we apply, but we are just applying to be the city's administrator if we are so chosen. I don't know how many applications they received, but
So it stands for CDBG Housing Improvement Local Livability.
there you go.
Doesn't that one also have a less, as far as the standard of the cap, how much a person makes? It's a higher standard.
It may be, and I'm not gonna speak to that because that sounds like something I don't want to talk to right now because I don't know the details.
Oh.
So I don't want
It's
to,
just more money coming in to help
yeah.
local homeowners.
The city already has the award. We just applied, we just want to apply to be the administrator.
So Virgie, the question comes is from a planning standpoint, right? It's great. Much more money to the EDC and the neighbors, the administrators. Do you have the capacity? What's that required for you?
So it's all about timing. So we have to layer it in with the other grant administrations we're doing. And so like I'm meeting with the AmeriCorps program at the college. And so, you know, it may be an intern, it may be another employee, it may be a temporary staff, but until I see the timeline, we don't know how we'll, you know, really vet that out. But we certainly have the capability to create the processes and do the work. We just, you know, need the man or woman power. But I don't want to hire that in advance of having, you know, funding.
And sometimes, because it's all in the same line, possibilities, the person that's handling the current grants, it'll just be a few things where the language is a little different and she will still be able to work on.
Well, I think there's gonna be efficiencies
Yeah.
in, for the whole, if the city as a whole, I think there'll be efficiencies, but. Yeah, it just depends on the timing, like the My Neighborhood. When we were awarded that, we have a different timeline for that and different level of expectations. You just have to kind of lay it out in a Gantt chart and know when the deliverables are.
And I only mentioned it from capacity standpoint in terms of, yes, the end customer satisfaction and perception, right? How these grants have been managed with the customer, end customers expectations are. These things appear very nice, but the devil's in the detail. And satisfying customer. Okay, listen, any other comments or discussion on this item? Right, procedurally, I'm ready for a vote.
I think you are.
I think it's the need for roll call. Let's take a roll call.
Snyder,
Yes.
Barbour,
Yes.
Harvey,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Clark,
Yes.
Zeller.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, thanks to item 7.
So you'll need a motion to approve the resolution to approve myself to execute and deliver application to the Economic Development Administration regarding the Public Works Economic Adjustment Assistance funding opportunity with the associated assurances.
Approved. Second.
Second.
Moved in second.
So on the next page of the packet is a resolution addressing this item. This particular grant that we would be asking of the EDA is up to $2.5 million with no match. And it would be used in case we have any infrastructure or any major work that needs to be done to prepare any land that we might want to use for an industrial park. So this is very specific money that we would be getting from the feds for that type of investment. So in a case where we would be able to utilize those dollars, that's what this would be for.
So we're applying to a grant, but. So you're saying that the information. Is on page 29.
21, sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry.
this is a resolution on 21. There's not a lot of information about the grant itself in the resolution. It's just the resolution. We would anticipate doing this before the next meeting, so that's why I wanted to get the resolution done and before the next meeting. So we are working on applying for this grant, and we would use it in the case of infrastructure needs and development work if we have some property that we would want to be preparing for future use.
So the designated property though is in what areas? Or do we have?
It would be anywhere within our service area, Albion Township, Sheridan Township, Albion, that we would have property that we want to develop for potential industrial use.
So specific to industrial use.
This particular grant is ideal for industrial use, yes, on job creation. It would be a way to demonstrate that we're looking at multiple funding sources to support big projects.
So if someone wants one of these parcels in like our new industrial park, this fund would allow us, if we got this grant, to be able to do the development of that. So it's an enticement to people who might want to locate in our industrial park. Am I reading that right?
It would be money that the EDC can use to further incentivize development in the greater Albion area.
So is it specific to like just the property itself or?
So it's specific to enhancements to the property, infrastructure to the property. And or dollars to infrastructure, roads, road work, and any other electrical work or electricity or utilities, all that work that would need to be done to again continue to incentivize someone to locate here.
So this apply to the, also to the fourth and the bottom? Or something else?
Could.
I guess I just. Is there a specific name of the grant?
Yes, it's the it's the Public Works Economic Adjustment Assistance Funding Opportunity.
Public Works.
It's in the resolution. Yes, we could, I mean, so I think what you're asking, Mr. Harvey, is we have a 425 arrangement with Sheridan Township east of town. And that area someday would be ripe for future development. So yes, this could definitely be used there.
So this is just a resolution to give you the authority to execute delivered grant application.
That's correct. I usually do that because it keeps everybody informed and it lets you know that there's a capacity to, would need to be able to utilize the grant if we receive it.
So this gives you the authority to apply for the grant, then go through, win or no win process, is that right?
Right.
And it's how much?
This particular one is 2.5 million with no match.
No match required on the city side or the EDC side, but straightforward $2.5 million.
And the grant doesn't have to specify the type of infrastructure expenditures.
The grant will likely be very specific about what we're hoping to accomplish and the economic impact. And so, yes, it'll be fairly specific once we send the application in.
Will the board see the application or be briefed on that before it's signed?
Not if we try to get it in before the next meeting. Right. Right.
Do you have?
It
an
can.
outline of what that's gonna be? Is that or?
I can share it later.
It just seems real.
It seems vague, yeah, and I hate approving and signing off on something that I haven't seen.
Okay, that's fine. We've done these before where it just outlines the resolution allowing us to apply.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
I mean, I guess there's not any harm in it because we don't have to accept it if we do win it and we don't
Mhm.
like what it says. So
Mhm.
I'm just trying to think what the risk would be.
the risk
A lot
of, the risk of
of-
getting it, right, the risk of getting it and not taking it is a real sour,
Yeah,
right?
well,
In the grant tours.
yeah, I get it. The idea of approving application for something that has to be very specific, but we don't know what those specifics are, is just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little concerned.
It's not specific on where it's going to be used. It's right, it's specific on what the benefits would be for them approving the grant.
Right.
You don't have a specific location at this point where it could be used.
So let me ask a couple questions. So what you have before the board version gives you the authority to apply for it.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Right, I never like to apply for a grant without the board approving that we've done it, or at least come back the month after. If it's something that we've talked about doing, so yeah.
Recognizing that, the board should be informed, clearly informed on what grants we're applying for. This is a no matching grant, that's what I've learned from you today. It's a no matching grant, it's $2.5 million. By acknowledgement of my fellow board members, it appears it sounds fairly vague in terms of further detail. So I guess the question that I would surmise to ask is, from a next step perspective, you now apply for a grant, then what happens?
So I think I've been asked for more detail, so you don't have to approve this today. You can say I'd rather have more detail, and I can try to do that. Or you can approve the resolution and we apply, and, you know, I let you, I somehow inform the one pager of what the application entails. And then we wait to see if we win, and then we accept, but you know, you don't have to accept.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask the hard question, because everybody's skipping around, because why are we applying for a grant that we don't have details to explain why what that money would be used for and how.
I'm going to say that the why and how is part of a previous closed session. I don't know how to answer the question.
So would it be appropriate to go into closed session to discuss this?
I don't think so. But I'll just be frank, I'm just leery of giving more data right now because it was part of a previous closed session topic.
Yeah, I understand.
I don't mean to be vague.
No, I know, but is it possible that we could get documentation, like, for us to be able to consume and then maybe we. So let me ask, do you know when the deadline is for the grant?
This is a rolling grant, and the only reason I haven't applied for it is I haven't had capacity to do it. So I would have done this like 3 months ago, but I just hired a grant writer. So I'm getting back in the swing of being able to do this, but it aligns with all the major plans that we have.
So I guess I wonder if you can get us that info and maybe we can convene for a special meeting, maybe like a 15-minute special meeting just to get that.
Yeah.
Get this approved after we know what, because I understand you really can't say much out in open meeting. But I think it would be good for us to be able to see that before we approve it. Is that a possibility?
In an open meeting?
No,
No,
no.
to get us the information, like, can you send that to us electronically so that we can review, digest?
I will share whatever I can share. I'm trying to not,
So as Ms. Clark says, being very flat footed and open. How do we provide some guardrails so that you can move on? This is a different approach that you look at. How do we provide you some guardrails to move in, move on with this board next month, or as this matures, understands more detail? Help us be comfortable, because I think I see puzzling looks around the room, right? And recognizing the scrutiny that you're under for confidentiality, something. Help us get comfortable in moving this today. Will you be back to us with more detail before this is executed?
I can be.
Will we at that time have full understanding of the specifics around it?
I would think so. I mean, I'm subject to interpretation. I guess frankly, what I would probably do is just meet with you all individually if you're interested in having a discussion, because I think that's a good way to do it. Once I have some more information. Right, to share the data.
But then we still have to vote, so that's why it's a good idea what Victoria was saying, so we can come back together.
Mhm.
So can you do that quickly so we can come back together and vote on this so it can move forward?
Or we can wait and vote on the July 11th meeting.
My question was, can you do it quickly so we can vote on it and move it forward, so we don't have to wait till July?
I probably could. I mean, I'll talk to the grant writer and try to get a one pager together in the next week or so. Is that timing?
Well, then we'll table it.
Yes,
So we have to have a motion to.
motion to table this resolution until we have further information.
Second.
Support.
Or, if there's money, we'll take a roll call.
You don't have to have a
No,
roll
we're
call to
not
table.
actually voting.
You're just tabling.
Alright.
But I got behind. I'm sorry. We're on item number 17. We have a motion on the table that we are not going to vote on. We have a subsequent motion to table. Sorry, and who made that? Clark.
Clark.
And second was Snyder. Thank you. And that's just all those in favor vote.
So,
Before we vote on that, can we get discussion on the table motion?
Yes.
Okay, I'm just thinking through this to make it as efficient as possible. And my thought was that if we, because all we're doing is giving her the authority to write and sign the application, we could approve this motion. And then if we don't get the, you know, appropriate level of information after a certain number of days, then we could call a special meeting to rescind it, as opposed to putting us in a position where we would have to get a, meeting together. So I'm just trying to make it, I know that might not have
No, I like that idea.
been as clear as possible, but
Yeah, that's a great idea. Gives her
but that
some
way,
leeway.
right, that way she's got it. If nobody comes back and says, hey, I didn't get the information I needed. And wants to call a meeting, we can go through the process of calling a special. But otherwise, we have to have a special meeting. So that way it just kind of gives us a little more to do it.
I frankly like that idea. I mean, I think you know. As we always say, keep the motion moving, keep it
Yeah.
moving forward, right?
Yeah. It's
That-
easier to go and stop it a little later than to have to restart it later, so based on that, I'm going to, when vote is called, I'm gonna vote down the motion to the table. And then ask for the motion to be called, the vote called on the original motion.
My only thought was that it would give the others that are not here that the insight as well, that would give them their information, and then they could also,
But we can also have her to get them that information. And talk.
And we're missing.
If we can avoid having to, having to do another meeting, then I think it's worth it. There's only 2 people that we'd have to bring in and get.
No, I agree. I think that's a great idea. I still think that's a great idea. But glad that you.
no, I'm,
It definitely depends on getting the information to the people soon. That's what I said.
Okay.
so is this not information you can send to us electronically, or is it?
I can send that to you.
It's potentially going to be subject to FOIA, and if it's related to negotiations that we
Right.
don't want to be public yet for a reason that's appropriate, then maybe not. Maybe it's better not to put that out there. The FOIA exceptions might cover this just because it is, there's a very important reason why there are FOIA exceptions for things that are being negotiated and things that you don't want to impact the market, for example, because you haven't decided what to do yet.
But again, it's
That's my very lawyer little chance.
it's just grant funding, so I don't, and we haven't been. I don't know if that's
But
different.
it's grant funding that might be to be used for something that's not yet negotiated. And so it tips the scales to the negotiation potentially. And that's what I'm only just giving that as an example. I don't know if that's what the case is here. But let's get the motion voted, and then we have time to figure that out. If it does require a public vote, then we'll get back together and do that. But if it doesn't, we've given her the authority to put it together.
So what was your motion again?
So I have to recheck mine first.
So, no, I know, but
I just moved to originally to approve the resolution to give Virgin the authority to execute and deliver the application. Just very preliminary to an application that hasn't been written yet.
He's.
We understand now what the money can be used for, but we don't know what the specifics are of the actual application.
but does there need to be a language in there where we can say we can come back?
There doesn't have to be, because we can come back. We can come back and say we don't want to send this application.
But at what point?
Well, with the board, we can do that whenever we want. So I'd be happy to coordinate that on behalf of the board. You know, and say, you know, you guys can tell me and we can, what is the process for calling a special meeting?
You just have to have
No.
two board members call a meeting.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'd be happy to coordinate that and get a special meeting if necessary.
Okay.
If after we talk to Virgie, after she puts maybe some thoughts together on what the specifics are. She hasn't written the grant yet, so it's hard to say that we approve of it, but
I would like to see the language of the.
yeah, just kind of the outline.
That possible, like, can you get us a hard copy? If it can't, we don't want to do it electronically.
Of the grant itself after it's been written?
Well, like, so the premise of what we are applying for.
Right, so I think, I think I understood that we want a one pager that explains conceptually what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
I think we're trying to understand now whether that should be distributed electronically, or maybe I just talk with everybody individually and share that information. I am, quite frankly, trying to not create a document that's foiable. So I'm in the process of conceptually, but happy to.
So.
So
is that
you-
what I think your motion is where we're at?
No, the motion to table is where we're at.
So the motion, we have to deal with that one first.
All right, so we have a motion table. Did I hear a second for that?
Vicky Clark had seconded the table, so now we need to go to vote to whether or not we want to table.
Let's have. Vote. And does that need to be a roll call?
Yes.
All right, let's make a roll call on that. Ida, Ms.
Snyder,
No.
Barbour,
No.
Nelson.
No.
Zeller,
No.
Clark,
No,
Harvey.
No.
Now you have a motion on the table. It was motion by Zeller, seconded by Nelson to approve the the application being submitted.
Do I have a, well, we have.
Discussion.
Second.
Discussion.
At this point, let's have a discussion.
Does there need to be a contingency in there?
I don't know, because our contingency can happen with or without vote. But my question is, once you submit the grant, is it public information?
I would have
Once you
to,
submit the application,
It's what?
is it foilable?
I would have to ask the EDA if that's foiable. My suspicion is that so if it's similar to MISTA, when we send grant applications into MISTA, until the awards are announced, nothing is foiable. So there's a timing, because you could FOIA your competition's application before the awards are announced. So typically,
That's,
Yeah, I don't think,
so I think it's
would that
foiable.
same thing apply then to an application before it's submitted?
From the EDC's perspective or from the EDA's perspective?
The EDC's perspective.
Your question is whether work in process is foiable?
So the day that you submit the application, it's not foilable, was it foilable the day before you submitted it?
Well, I'm suggesting it's foiable from the grantor's perspective, once the awards are given out. So MISTA, in my experience, when you do LIHTC applications, for example, we can FOIA all of our competitors' applications the day after that round of awards are given. So then it becomes foiable.
Right.
Now, from the
That's-
grantee's perspective, so what I would think what manages FOIAbility is, I'm trying to avoid two things. One, I'm trying to avoid an Open Meetings Act violation.
Mhm.
And then two, I'm just trying to really not impact the market rate of some open projects.
Right.
So, trying to,
But that.
trying to do my due
Back
diligence.
to my question is as you develop a grant application, is that?
It is, I would
application-
think it's all foyable.
Well, Nelson, are you able to chime in?
I don't know.
He's doing really.
Unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Can't hear you yet.
He is unmuted, but we don't have a speaker on it or something.
Right, we don't have a speaker
Oh.
on here. This seems to be our plate. I'll call him.
Maybe if Nelson could also give us,
I'm gonna call him right now.
So,
so I would,
so in order to move this along. Then we.
Yeah, we can get the answer to that later.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's call him.
yeah, and then Nelson can definitely follow up with Virgie and,
Yeah, let's.
Let her just
yeah.
figure out how that information should be properly disseminated to us.
I'll continue to follow up and if, if anybody wants to talk to me about it, call me, but if we decide we need another meeting, I'll coordinate that. Since I paused this mess.
Are we ready?
Yes, she did.
Are we ready for a vote?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Brown?
Harvey,
Yeah.
Nelson,
Yes.
Barbour,
Yeah.
Snyder,
Yes.
Zeller,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
Thank you.
And sorry, folks, I do have to leave. I'm already late, because I didn't want to get that vote in.
Next item is really just point of information, because there are ongoing discussions. And you may have heard of these, or you may have been part of them in other meetings. They're definitely part of several of our task forces, and the city manager and I are having constant communication. So really, this is just the first time I wanted to bring these to your attention. And this starts on page 22. There's a nice memo that our new project analyst has put together, so I'm really excited about the experience she brings and the work she's doing. And I asked her to summarize for you the pros and cons of putting together these corridor improvement authorities and these neighborhood improvement authorities. And if you go to page 23, you have a picture of the Corridor Improvement Authority, which we're affectionately calling the Y District, because if you hold it sideways, it looks like a Y. So this is an area of Austin Avenue, North and South Eaton that are predominantly commercial. And the justification and the idea of creating a Corridor Improvement Authority along this corridor is to create an opportunity for future TIFs that could be established in this area. And those TIFs, the incremental taxes and even the incremental of increase on existing commercial properties would be dedicated to improvements within that authority. This would require a board to be created for this Corridor Improvement Authority, because it's just like a DDA or just like any other authority. So just some background is this area is obviously not the DDA, because the DDA manages the Superior Street downtown development, but this would be the other business district that we have in town. So again, we're currently affectionately calling it the Y District. And so this is, again, just an introduction to this concept, that the idea is anybody in these areas, future improvement, we would be able to capture those dollars, the incremental tax, to put back into that particular neighborhood or those particular corridors. I've made a small error because page 24 is a duplicate, so you can skip to page 25. And on page 25, you'll see a view of the Neighborhood Improvement Authority number 2. The Neighborhood Improvement Authority number 2 runs on the west side of North Eaton over to the city line, I'm sorry, not to the city line, but to the end of, yeah, it is to the city line, because if you continue west, when you get to the next blue line, just before 27 Mile Road, this is where the township picks up. So again, this is a residential focus, not a commercial focus. And these neighborhood improvement authorities are a tool that has been used in Marshall. They're being used in Jackson, and so we are attempting to create them here. Again, the incremental increase of taxes on the residential locations in this area, that those dollars stay in this area and they can be used for sidewalk improvement. They can be used for trees, they can be used for any other infrastructure improvement, or they can be used to incentivize developers. And so this also would create a separate board. And this Neighborhood Improvement Authority number 2 is on the west side of North Eaton. And lastly, if you go to, oh no, it's the same thing. Okay. No, I got it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you got it.
I got it right. Okay. If you go to page 26,
Yep.
you see Neighborhood Improvement Authority number 1. And Neighborhood Improvement Authority number 1 is outlined on the east side of North Eaton. And it runs over to Maple. It jets up into the land that is currently owned by the Opportunity High School, which would be the Watson Street housing. And then it comes down down to North Street. And you can see, if you were to lay these together, and these are rough sketches, the assessor is working on better sketches. But if you can see, if you were to lay these 3 documents down together, the Corridor Improvement Authority would run up between these 2 neighborhood improvement authorities. And so this northernmost part of the city would be either in a corridor improvement authority or one of the 2 neighborhood improvement authorities. And we're doing this because developers are asking for some incentives to be able to develop in these areas. And this is one of the tools that will be helpful for that. And again, it keeps the incremental increase from all that development work in these particular neighborhoods. And it is not by happenstance that the poverty is higher in some of these areas than in the rest of the city. So again, really focus and targeting some of these economic development tools to be within the areas that, need the most uplift. So that is where most of the housing development that we're producing is happening. So again, nothing yet. What I would like to do is have the EDC endorse this idea at a future meeting. And then, provide relative data to the council. The council is going to be approached also, but city manager and I are just trying to share information. So everyone, because this is really an economic development tool, but eventually there'll have to be some boards created and some governance, considered. So, so I asked, Margaret to put together not only the memo, which I thought she did a great job with, but then a 1-pager on both corridor improvement authorities and neighborhood improvement authorities, and which she did on the last couple of pages. So again, not a lot of detail today, but I wanted to get it out to you because this is a critical time. There's just a lot happening because we're really trying to do probably, 10 years of development in 2. So trying to really pull out all stops and find all the tools that we can possibly use.
This is a 6-month horizon, an 8-month horizon, 1-year horizon. What are you viewing or visioning? This kind of thing coming in.
So my intention would be to bring an actual resolution for the EDC body support to the next meeting, and then that would flow up to council, and then city manager would have that alongside her request for council to consider creating these 3 authorities. I do believe we have significant interest across the community based on our task forces are becoming very helpful. our housing task force, our workforce development task force, our industrial attraction task forces are places where we can have a lot of conversation. They don't include, a quorum number of board members. We can have a council person or a EDC come together. I mean, they're really great collaboration tools. So a lot of these are coming out of those task forces and then bubbling up to the two boards. And so we're just trying to, I think we all would love to do it in next week. But we all have time to get things together. But these are the maps that have been projected. These are the city staff and EDC staff conversations that have been had. So creating the districts is probably not as difficult as, putting the boards together and talking about the governance structure and, some conversation around that would be critical.
Is there a con side of this? You clearly identify the permanent side, is there a downside?
The downside would be if you don't live in one of these districts and you see incremental improvement happening in these districts, those incremental dollars are gonna stay in that district. So they won't go to other parts. So if you're developing in this area, your value that you're bringing stays in that area. It doesn't flow to Superior Street. It doesn't flow into precinct, 6. It doesn't flow into other precincts. So I suppose that the conversation will be, this is narrowing where those incremental tax dollars flow. So I mean, I would think if I'm on city council, that would be, what my questions would be. So similar to downtown, if you do incremental increase downtown, those dollars are staying in the downtown area because of the Oprah district and some of the TIF arrangements that have happened there. So
For our next meeting, is there more information or additional information to share with each of the board members?
well, I wanted to get this out and I wanted to get questions back. So I was really hoping to get some feedback on questions, and like the ones you're asking, I think are relevant questions. But really, because we're having all these discussions in the task forces, some of you are in those task forces, some of you are not. It's a big deal for the city to endeavor into this. And so I just, wanted to make sure you knew that these conversations are happening. So looking for
There's
feedback.
no action.
No action. This was just an informational component. I'd like to bring forth to the next meeting a resolution that would say, hey, we're in favor of the city looking into this, or the city doing this, and maybe even this is the role we'd be happy to play if you need our help.
So is there any additional information the board members have between now and the next meeting, right? That it gives the more information to have good discussion around this.
I think that's what the one pager on page 27 and 28 are. This is highlights of what a corridor improvement authority and what a neighborhood improvement authority do. And the only other, and then the memo, I think, explains the purpose. The only other question, if I were asking, might be financial, like the potential financial impact. Of course, you don't know that unless you know what the improvements will be. But what the assessor's doing at the city level is assessing the current baseline property values in each of these areas. And then from there, you would have to interpolate how much development we think we're doing. And then what would not then be distributed to the greater city. So I think that's the question, but we won't have much of those numbers yet.
So having detail for Greg, or one page of detail, and we can talk about those boards that we created, number on the jurisdiction being alive. I guess that's what I mean by perhaps helping us with some more information.
If it doesn't, I can get that for you.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think just a little bit of discussion, the industrial corridor, like the Austin and North Eaton, has been discussed for a long time. And that should be that's a really good thing to get that one going. The neighborhood ones, I haven't heard as much about. That one, I would say we might want to look at a little more because it's slightly controversial in the sense that, as she said, there are neighborhoods that will, other precincts, if you will, that will say, well, that money that would be going back to the city's general coffers would be restricted to those neighborhoods. So that one's requires a little more thought. It's a little newer idea.
Right, and then again, it's just the incremental increase. So
Right.
it's not the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's a lot like the Harrington program in precinct 6, because if you are employed by the college and you want to buy a home within an area right around the college, you can qualify for a down payment assistance. So that's like something happening in that area that doesn't happen anywhere else. And so the goal is to try to incentivize growth in some of these other areas and really truly address the poverty issue. So we can't really ignore the fact that we're 35% poverty, but this, precinct 1 alone, which is the northwest corner, is 65% poverty. So we do need some tools in those areas to enhance the economics.
Right, that would be the reason for including the neighborhoods as well.
Yes, that's and it incentivizes developers to come in.
Right.
So
Or-
moving it up to the agenda for our next meeting, adding some materials that we just talked about. Like the proposals. Is there any other comments on what that? On the discussion that we have about? We'll move to number 19 for board member discussion and comments. Finding down the myriad.
Well, we gotta do a motion to excuse the absent members. So move. You forgot 20. You went to 21.
I think he's at 19.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad.
Removed, but not that bad.
I'm trying.
So
Faster.
No. Okay. All right, a motion to excuse absent members,
So move.
Second.
move in second. Do I have discussion? No discussion being heard? All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Here the ayes have it. Public comment is now open to our Zoom audience as well as those who are in the gallery, of which there are none. Do we see any open hands or raised hands in the gallery? Nope. Nope. At this point, unless there's something I've overlooked, which means we can adjourn. Wow, fanfare.